And good morning. Welcome to Nature Watch. Nature Watch is sponsored by Waddell's Nursery, Floral, Garden, and Bird Center at the corner of 12th Street and Millam Road. And now your host of Nature Watch, it's Gary Miller. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I guess I'm on call tomorrow. I'm only 3 minutes away from the station, so folks, if the severe storms that Sarah was talking about do form, I will come in and let you know about it.
Yeah, there's a slight chance of some severe storms, so we'll see. It's that time of year.
Yeah, Bill Steffen was talking about it this morning on Facebook. He's pretty convinced that we may get rocked. So
and you never know. The energy builds up with the systems, and there's quite a warm, wet mass coming up from the south, and then you've got this big cold mass dropping down, and it meets just out over Lake Michigan, basically. So it's going to maybe just wallop us. So.
It's our spring roller coaster this year.
Yes.
We are having a real spring for a change, folks.
Yeah. It was actually nice walking in without a jacket this morning too.
You know, I was humming Phil Collins all the way in. You know his album, No Jacket Required. Come on.
So something neat this morning. I actually going out and getting my truck coming into the station this morning, and lo and behold, one of the first things I hear is a pileated woodpecker hammering away in a tree somewhere down the road. Yeah. But they're so loud. They're much louder than any of the other woodpeckers as far as their communication. So I knew it was a pileated. Did not see them, but I could hear them.
Well, there you go.
So neat to see. A lot of birds out there. Not a lot of migration right now. There's some still getting a lot of the waterfowl. Not a big number of them, but earlier this week I saw some common goldeneye that pretty well nest up in Canada and north. They sort of winter over here. And not a big population of them, but they're not that unusual either. And but right now in the wet areas, so if you're near a lake or a pond or something, or have a chance to go look, now's a great time to see some of those waterfowl that nest way up in the Arctic. Those birds are coming through, and they're not usually big numbers of those. So neat to see. Lots of sandhill cranes all over. Still seeing. I noticed yesterday, going home from work, some of the fields they were just not real close groups, but they were scattered all over the fields, and hundreds and hundreds of them. So they're just really sort of scattered out and sort of grazing right now, and so we'll see a lot of those come through. Still not at the big numbers like they get out in Nebraska along the Platte River. They estimate about 80% of the sandhill cranes go up that flyway and actually stop over at the Platte River. So,
okay.
But we still get a lot of them coming through here, so pretty neat to see.
All right.
Hummingbirds are actually coming up too. They sort of slowed down a little bit, so they're about halfway across Tennessee. Maybe they're doing a little sightseeing on the way up. I think they do a little hiccup until it gets a little warmer.
And maybe they read Bill Steffen's warning about the storms,
that could be too.
And the fact that we are still going through this big roller coaster.
So I mentioned the hummingbirds because last year they came, and 2 weeks from now they arrived. So you might want to, if you hadn't done it yet, get that hummingbird feeder. If you need another one, clean the ones you have. Might want to get that first one out here in this next week.
Really?
Just in case, because after Monday, it looks like it's going to be warmer again. And once it gets warm, they move north pretty fast. Usually you have those couple odd scouts that come up north.
Okay.
So might want to think about getting that hummingbird feeder out here in the next week.
Okay. Let's do something else pretty fast. Let's give away a gift certificate.
Oh, okay. Let's do that.
It's our weekly trivia question. If you answer it correctly at 269-382-4280, first correct answer will win a $20 gift card to Waddell's, and Gary has your brain teaser of the morning.
And this one might be an easy one. We'll see. So, how do birds know when to migrate?
Well, simply.
So there's several reasons, but there's one primary reason that, generally speaking, birds know when to migrate.
Okay.
So what makes them decide when to migrate?
269-382-4280. First correct answer will score a gift card.
Yes. And I actually see more turkey vultures, so that's a good sign. It means it's going to stay on the most side warm. Not going to get real cold again, though you might get a little surprise Monday.
Okay.
So.
Well, tell you what, let's go to the phones. WKZO, good morning. Who is this?
This is Bob.
Bob!
Hi, Bob.
How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
Well, you got an answer for me?
How about the light?
That is correct.
He saw the light.
Yes. So actually the birds have this internal sensor on the amount of daylight, and it's called photoperiod, so the length of the light each day. And so when they get that certain length, and the different species have various lengths of light that they need, it sort of triggers them as far as getting ready to migrate. it triggers some of those hormones so they can actually, when they come north, they're ready to breed. All sorts of things. So that photo period, it actually affects all the birds, and very, very common thing with them.
There you go. Good job, Bob. You have a $20 gift card coming to you. Can you hold on the line? I need to get some info from you that I don't want anybody else to know about.
Thank you, guys, and I appreciate it.
All right, hang on there, Bob. We'll get back to you in just a moment, and we'll get back to all of you in just a moment as well. It's Nature Watch on WKZO.
Watching beautiful wild birds is so enjoyable, and this week you can save 20% on Waddell's entire selection of bird feeders and birdhouses, including their entire line of locally made Stovall cedar feeders. Waddell's also has a great selection of hummingbird feeders, oriole feeders, and top-quality Aspects feeders, each with a lifetime warranty. Also this week, Thistle seed for finches is on sale for $1.78 per pound, or get the 10-pound bag for just $16.98. 50-pound bags of black oil sunflower seed are sale priced at $21.98, and 20 and 40-pound bags of George's No Waste Blend are on sale. You save up to $6. More bird feeding specials on safflower seed, peanuts, suet, and more can be found in Waddell's Spring Show ad at Waddells.com. Waddell's Nursery Florist and Garden Center, the Kalamazoo area's bird feeding headquarters, on Texas Drive at the corner of Milam and 12th Street. Open Monday through Friday 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 5, closed Sundays.
The station that makes you feel like home when you're listening to Detroit Tigers baseball. Been the home of the Tigers for over 75 years. 590 and 106.9 FM. WKZO.
8:39, Bob from Kalamazoo, our big winner of a $20 gift card to Waddell's. He'll get that next week in the mail. Right now, let's get back to Nature Watch. It's Gary.
Yeah, so with the migration, it's actually interesting that when the birds get triggered, get ready to migrate, sometimes they molt their feathers just a little bit, get some new fresh feathers before they fly north. They grow new ones. It actually increases their eating and digestive patterns, so they actually eat a lot more food to get that energy and maybe a little bit more weight and muscle to fly north. And some birds, once they've eaten enough, a digestive hormone called ghrelin begins to make them restless and nudges them to take flight. So that light is a big factor for the birds to migrate. Baltimore Orioles, we're still about a month away from them, usually about around the 1st of May or so when they arrive. So you got a little bit of time to get those Oriole feeders out, though. You want to get ready for them. One thing I happen to think about, even though we had some rain this last week, and that was great because our drought situation improved a little bit this last week. Not much. Just a little bit. So every little bit counts. We need that nice slow soaking rain to build that soil moisture up. But so make sure you've got those bird baths out there. So make sure if you haven't cleaned those, clean your bird bath out because birds will need that water too once they start nesting and they're migrating through. Obviously, they can get water at all sorts of places, but why not offer it in your yard? Maybe see some odd migrating birds in your yard.
There you go.
Make sure you keep those feeders fed full. So.
If you want to join us today on Nature Watch, 269-382-4280 with your questions for Gary, or you can text it to us at 80373. Looks like we have a busy show here. You have notes galore.
Well, I usually have notes galore. I usually have extra notes just in case we don't get anybody to call in. Okay. I'd love to have people call in, something they've seen. Actually, I was checking to see how the monarchs are doing. Monarchs are actually on their way north. So that first generation, they're actually up into Texas, like the Panhandle, into Oklahoma. Arkansas, and a few other southern states. So they're coming north from Mexico. Still a ways away, but those warm temperatures are going to help. Keep coming north here. So
yeah, okay.
It makes it interesting. Keep watching those migration patterns. Right now, there's not a lot of big numbers of birds migrating every night, but there are some, and. You might see some odd, nesting birds that nest way north, and they're coming through earlier than some of the ones that nest around this area or just a little further north. So this next week sort of rocks because on the 6th is Geologist Day. So geologists are the men and women that study materials, processes, history, products, and the physical nature of the Earth. A lot of rock. So some cool geological information. There are 18 volcanoes in the United States. All of them have the potential to erupt.
Lovely.
So the volcanoes are primarily in Alaska, Hawaii, and then along the states of the West Coast. diamonds are not only available as transparent, they're also yellow, purple, gray, blue, black, brown, pink, and red diamonds as well. So it depends on what other little micronutrients or minerals are in there. Another interesting fact, people automatically float in the Dead Sea. Is because the dissolved salts in the Dead Sea make the water so dense, it's more dense than humans, so humans just float very easily. Even if you're a rock like me and you sink typically.
Huh.
Not that I've been there to do that, but I would float there.
Okay.
And our atmosphere is made up of 80% nitrogen. So even though we breathe oxygen, we breathe a lot of nitrogen in too. And if you're going to be around a long time, a really long time, it's predicted that in 200 million years, North America and Asia are going to collide and form a supercontinent. So something to mark in your calendar, I guess. Pass on to your generations, subsequent generations. And
I don't think we'll be around for that.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
So this last week, I actually tuned into Eagle and DNR webinar on invasive species. They have one periodically, about one a month, at least one a month, on different things. And they were talking a little bit about lesser celandine. And I know I mentioned that last year. It's added to the watch list. Now is a time if you're out hiking around, walking around, enjoying the spring weather, and you're in some areas where you have like floodplains and that, because that's typically where it grows. It's a spring ephemeral, so it's up in the spring, and then by about the end of May, it disappears. So you want to look for it. They have some great photos on the DNR and on the invasive species websites that show you there are some lookalikes. If you look very closely at the photos and look at the descriptions, once you see that, it's pretty easy to determine whether it's lesser celandine or not. But it has a potential of being very, very invasive because it not only spreads by the little tubers that it has in the roots, and animals dig them up, but it forms these little bulbils right at the base of where the leaf stem attaches to the stem, main stem. And where the leaves attach to the main stem, these little bulbils, and they're about BB size. They drop off, these little bulbs basically, and they get in the bottom, your treads of your shoes, hiking shoes and that, because you're in wet soil sometimes. So if you're out hiking in the wet, and even if you haven't seen lesser celandine, make sure you clean those hiking boots off. And actually, if you're interested in invasive species, or at least knowing what they look like when you're out and about, they're actually the invasive species website, and actually MISIN, the Midwest Invasive Species Information Network, has all sorts of training modules, so you can actually learn how to identify all those different invasive species. And if you're out and about, they ask that you do that and then report them if you see something, because even if you're not sure, take photos, report. That helps them investigate, and if it looks like things are spreading. Lesser celandine is definitely here in southwestern Michigan. They've confirmed many sites, not the entire state that they've actually had a chance to look at. So if you're other areas of the state, I'll keep an eye out for that too. But I know here in Kalamazoo County area, there's numerous sites that they've found it. And it's just on a watch list right now because it takes some time for them to get on that, very endangered or alert for invasive species. So a lot of times invasive species start out with the watch list. So something to keep out. Neat way to educate yourself too, and look for all those things. It seems like we keep getting more and more invasives. Again, watch out for the spotted lanternfly and spongy moth, caterpillar, egg masses. So out and about, let's clean those up. The neat comment too on the spotted lanternfly. They're still using that slogan: "See it, squish it, report it."
Yep.
And so the same thing with the egg masses. Actually, their little slogan for cleaning, like your hiking boots or even treads on vehicles and that, if you're out in some wetter areas that you may have that, maybe pick up that lesser celandine bulbil, is play, clean, go. So do whatever you're doing, make sure you clean everything really good, and then go on. So really we want to make sure that we don't keep spreading those around. Try to help everybody out and try to help protect the native species, because a lot of times what happens, especially like lesser celandine, they actually crowd out everything else. So they have this monoculture early in the spring, and then the rest of the season there's not much there, and so it crowds out all those native plants. Soon in those same areas we'll start seeing some marsh marigold, and that's one of the sort of lookalikes to the celandine, lesser celandine. But marsh marigold, lesser celandine is very flat, very low profile. marsh marigold's usually about tuft, and the petals on the yellow petals on the marsh marigold are more broad than the lesser celandine. Lesser celandine is more narrow petaled plant, and I haven't seen any action yet, but I want to look here with this warm weather now. Here soon should be start seeing some of the skunk cabbage emerging too. And they're actually, if you look at skunk cabbage, and they're actually a fantastic looking flower. So sort of this purplish brown, looks almost like an orchid. Doesn't smell like one though. If you rub it, it smells like a skunk, just like if you rub the leaves on the skunk cabbage. And but actually, it's a very pretty flower. So something to look at if you're out in those wet areas or near wet areas. Look along the shoreline of some of those bodies of water if you're looking for waterfowl and they're migrating, and look at the plants and that along the shoreline too.
You brought up skunks. I have noticed the aroma of skunk a lot more. Now but someone's going to say, yeah, but something else that people smoke also smells skunky as well. No, I can tell the difference. Trust me, these are skunks.
They have been very active with this warm weather. I've numerous times I've smelled them. They've released their scent, and there's a few locations there's some skunks denning somewhere nearby because there's a couple spots on 12th Street, the west side of Kalamazoo, that almost always smell a skunk scent there. So I know there's some skunks that live around there, and they've been very active. Groundhogs have gotten very active. Raccoons have been active. Seen a lot of groundhogs out in the fields and that too. So animals are coming, getting really busy.
Yeah.
The deer are moving all over yet. Still have to stop every once in a while and wait for them to cross the road. A lot of turkeys. I've seen a lot of turkeys too this last week.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't see them standing alongside 131 this morning like I did last week.
Wow. 269-382-4280 if you want to join us this morning on Nature Watch.
So a couple of events. Next Saturday, the Kalamazoo Astronomical Society has another public observing session at the Kalamazoo Nature Center, and that's from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., and they're going to highlight the Moon, Mars, and Jupiter. So Mars and Jupiter are actually visible right now when we have clear skies, and we've actually had quite a few fairly clear skies since we had that lunar eclipse. More clear skies than you typically think of, as we always have all these clouds, it seems like, and actually had some nice clear skies, and it's great to do observations this time of year because you don't have those pesky mosquitoes buzzing around like you do later in the summer.
Yes.
There's nothing more annoying than being out and nice and warm, and you can actually nice clear skies, see all the stars, and you have this constant drone of the mosquitoes buzzing in your ear.
Right.
Though it's gotten warm enough, we'll probably start seeing them this week. Next week.
Shush.
Can't control them.
Shush. I already had a mosquito sighting a couple of weeks ago, so we're already past that.
But there's not very many of them this time of year yet, so it's still good. Usually it cools down just enough at night that they stay hidden. The next, 2 weeks from now, weekend of the 12th and 13th of April, there's a Kalamazoo Parks Beautification Project, and this is actually a cooperative effort of quite a few organizations. The Michigan Waterways Stewards are headlining and hosting that and sort of being the key organization. But they're piggybacking with the Kalamazoo Parks and Recreation, the Barry, Calhoun, and Kalamazoo Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, or the CISMA. And a lot of the counties have grouped together and formed these CISMAs, and they're the organization that sort of the people on the ground, when you report invasive species, they have this sort of strike team that goes in and looks at places, especially to make sure if there's something very invasive spreads easily. And they're also the groups that sometimes try to get grants on that through the state to help fight some invasive species. So great. They actually have a lot of information on their website too. So if you just go to the Michigan Invasive Species Network, and they actually have a link to all those local CISMAs, and you can see what information they have. The other groups involved: Kalamazoo Area Wild Ones, Kalamazoo Growlers, Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy, and then the WMU Greek Community as a community service. So a lot of people helping out. They're going to work on the Mares Riverfront and Verburg Parks and do a lot of invasive species removals, a lot of trees and shrubs, plants, I know on Saturday and Sunday. And if you can come out both days, they'd love it if you can come out for an hour or two either day. They'd love that just to help clean up along the river.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
And they removed thousands and thousands of pounds last year when they did their beautification day. So they get a good turnout for it, especially when the weather's cooperative. So something to add to in their calendar to do and help out the community and maybe improve those parks. So some neat things coming up. One of the things we think about this time of year: do birds reuse nests?
Really? Yeah.
So some birds do. If they think of eagles, eagles keep adding to their nest. They're one of the biggest nests, as far as the nests that birds build. Some birds make a nest and they use it that one time and that's it. So
now will a certain bird make use of a different bird's
yes, actually
nest?
they will.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times woodpeckers will make that hole in a tree and make that cavity. They typically use it once. And then other birds like chickadees and even like bluebirds will use that natural cavity and actually reuse it later on in the season or the next year. So the woodpeckers typically make a fresh new cavity in a tree and make a new nest because they use the fresh wood shavings or some bedding at the bottom of it, of the nest. And so they typically make that one cavity and don't reuse it, though occasionally some of them will reuse a nest cavity, but typically not, or they may enlarge it. So other birds will use that. Chickadees will use a lot of little cavities like that. And I was actually reading a little bit about chickadees this last week. So chickadees in the wintertime tend to form these flocks with all sorts of other birds, and they're that sort of sentinel of the little mixed flocks. And so if you remember when I talked about chickadees before, when the chickadees call, their chickadee call, the more D's that you hear, the more threat or how serious the threat is. And other birds pick up on that. And so a lot of times migrating birds will, coming through an area, they will link up with one of these mixed flocks with chickadees in because, the chickadees act as these sentinels. So sort of interesting to see. But chickadees typically will roost in this little cavity. Sometimes they'll make their own little cavity by themselves. They'll fluff their feathers up when it's really cold and just make this little cavity and a little nook that they tuck themselves in. But they usually form these mixed flocks a lot of times, chickadees, juncos, titmice in the wintertime, and then they get these other random birds that mix in with them, and then when the migrating birds come through. So some birds, like robins, typically make that new nest every year because they use that mud pack and all sorts of vegetative matter. Mourning doves, even if they wanted to reuse their nest, it never holds together enough to last for another season. Bluebirds, a lot of times, will, if they have that second and third clutch that they nest with. Now, sometimes they'll do that, use that first nest, and then they'll go to another location for those next clutches. So each one, sometimes they'll move to a different location. So it's random with birds. A lot of times the raptors, owls, and hawks will reuse most of their nests in the same location. Again, depends on the particular species. And anything else, anything that nests on the ground, so you think of like the geese, mute swans or tundra swans, any of the waterfowl that nest and a lot of times make their nest out of a little island or little raised area with a lot of cattail vegetative matter. They rebuild those every year because whatever they built last year is pretty well long gone. They might build it in a similar location or very near the same location, but and they a lot of times will build their nests on those raised areas of soil. So it looks like a little island or so, but it's got water around there to keep the predators away. I realize that they're nesting on the ground, basically. And typically the main predator then is are raccoons and then some of the other rodents in that. But raccoons are usually one of the biggest threats. So they have that body of water there that tends to keep those predators away more. So
Okay.
And I noticed with the grass greening up, the geese are starting to graze in some of the really green lawn areas. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. They tend to fertilize those areas quite regularly when they feed, so helps the grass grow.
Right.
So do that whole recycle, the whole cycle of life there. They eat the grass and then they leave the fertilizer to help the grass grow again.
There you go. We're getting set to wrap up in a few moments. If you want to join in last second, 382-4280.
Yeah, so the chickadees, some of the other things with chickadees, they actually will hide seed, they will store seed, cache it away, and they will remember thousands of hiding places, which is very unique. You think of that very small brain that they have, but they don't remember thousands of places where they store the seed.
And we lose stuff left and right.
Yes, we do. Where did I put my keys? Where are my glasses? Yes. And actually, they will remember that for at least a month or more, where that seed's stored. Now, every year, hey, they might have that memory like we do, and like, gosh, I remember I stored something here last winter or so. Before they get the winter every year, they actually allow their brain neurons containing the old information to die, and then they replace them with new neurons so they can store some new information where they store things.
You know, if someone comes up to you and say, you are so bird-brained, I would take that as a compliment.
Oh, yeah.
now.
Fantastic.
You know?
So the chickadees, watch them. They're very fun. They're very friendly birds, very used to people and that. And they're a good indicator species. Watch them because they have those mixed flocks of the other birds around, too. So get outside, enjoy the outdoors. If you see something during the week, you can email me at naturewatch@waddell's.com. Stop in. I'm not there every day, but some days. And, if you see something, but love to hear from you. Give us a call, text, make some notes during the week, and then call or text in next weekend.
And once again, I come in Saturday mornings and I learn something. Now I learn it's good to be bird-brained.
Yes. Very good.
Gary, thank you, sir. We do appreciate you coming in every Saturday and entertaining us and educating us.
Well, I learn every week, too.
There you go.
So it's actually very fun.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming in, and thank you for listening to this edition of Nature Watch. Tune in each Saturday morning at 8:30 for Nature Watch, brought to you by Waddell's Nursery, Floral, Garden, and Bird Center at the corner of 12th Street and Millam Road. Coming up next, CBS and local news, and then Andy Waddell is in for Over the Garden Fence with your questions and comments at 382-4280. That's all next here on 590 and 106.9 FM WKZO.